All right, well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I believe we're starting off our first round now. This is the second semifinal of the VRL Season 2 Finals. Beginners versus Bossfight, with the winner who will have to take 2 maps in order to claim victory here. And we'll move on into the big arena behind us for the grand finals later on today. Here go our players. Starting things off, it is going to be the Bossfight on the orange team and Beginners starting on the blue team. So what we can see right now is a load of smoke grenades going across this south road. And what it means is they're going to try and transition some players across that road. You really need that smoke cover, otherwise you'll get shot down as you do. And we can see here, Bossfight transitioning 2 players across. That's a great move from them because it means they'll give them good south coverage. But now we can see Beginners slowly pushing up through the south, setting up positions, and they're not looking to push right now. And this is something that's very key with Beginners' playstyle. They like to set up, look for pickoffs, and then they will slowly move towards the objective, whereas some teams, especially American teams, tend to enjoy like heavy, fast assaults early on. Now, we talked a little bit as well about the objective, and for you guys that might be new to Onward, that's that white dot on the right side of the map right now, towards the center. And that uplink position will actually change every 2 rounds. Each team will have an attempt to basically play offense and attack that uplink point, and then it will change its position. How does this uplink point generally tend to play out amongst the pro players? Now, this uplink point is an interesting one to defend. It's not one of the harder ones, but it really, really, really heavily relies on getting defensive players to that south area. What you tend to see is that if the Marsoc team, which is the blue team, the attacking team, can get that wide flank, it gives them a lot of field of coverage on the objective, which means they can get a lot of pickoffs. So what we tend to see is like 1 or 2 said south, 2 players tend to hold on the objective itself, and they tend to send 1 player north just to try and watch out for a north flank, and we can see why, because there is indeed a north flank coming from Beginners. Just 1 player at the moment here, with the majority of them still stacking in the building cluster down to the south. So we just saw Beginners take down one of the Bossfight players, and we see a return fire from Mr. Death, who gets and kills Woods. So there's 1 Bossfight player down. He is resable, though. That means that if a Bossfight player can get into position, they can get him up with a syringe. And that's what that plus means, as you guys are keeping track at the top of the UI right there. If it's an X, it means that they're down and completely out. If it's still a plus, that means they are revivable, and that means they can talk too, but they gotta be careful about that because their opponents can also hear them. However, they still have a bleed out time. It's relatively long, but eventually it will also go down. And of course, the circles are players that are still alive. Look at Killinger's approach here right now. He's prone, pushing up, trying to get a pick off on Mr. Death, who's repositioned, so they're not going to get that. Bossfight still haven't got the res on Shaku, and Shaku, unfortunately, is in the north position. No one's going to be able to go and get him, but he's down not out, so he can still radio in intel until he bleeds out, which is, I believe, a 2-minute timer. Yes, I think you're correct about that. But for the time being, though, Beginners are continuing to take at least a small amount of control because of their success in pushing down towards the south flank. It may come to a boil relatively soon. We can see the position from Hoochie on Bossfight, also getting kind of danger close to spotting some of these Beginners players. Kushbury's now looking for an angle into that middle building, but they're not going to find it. Mr. Death getting another pick now, taking down Dr. Killinger, and that's a big pick, because Dr. Killinger, like I said, one of the key player, if you ask me. Mr. Death is going to try his luck once again as he peeks up here. Already, well, the only player, at least from his team, that's been able to pick up kills from behind this big mound. He's going to try to go for a little bit of pre-fire around the plane, thinking that he would find a player there, but not going to get it. And it's actually Woods that is able to down him at long range. Nice response coming in from our Beginners player to take him out of the fight. Down but not out. I mean, a res could come in here. It would be risky for Bossfight to do, but I mean, you can see from where Mr. Death is, he's rolled down the hill, so he's behind cover. It's a 3-on-3 situation now, but with 2 Bossfight players resable, they can still turn this around. They can still capture that advantage. Nice position being taken up by another member of the Beginner. I believe Scoochberry's moving himself forward into that little break in the wall, had himself some vision on the Bossfight that was hiding in the clear building, but was unable to find any actual success in knocking anyone down. He's going to try his luck at it again, but it looks like both players from Bossfight that were in that position previously have now relocated, so it's not going to be so easy once again. There's finally the revive, yeah. Oh, as you can see, Hoochie heading way down to the south behind that sand mound that we were looking at a few minutes ago to take him out, and Mr. Death immediately striking again. Revenge for Mr. Death. Revenge for Mr. Death. You get me, I get you. Pretty much, and that would be Icy Woods, the player who took him down a few seconds ago, now getting completely knocked out of the round. Beginners now down to only 2 players remaining here, while Bossfight still stands strong at 4 alive on defense after rezzing Mr. Death about a minute ago. A minute 40 left on the clock, though, so Beginners still have time to maneuver and still have time to attack, but it is getting close now. Great communications coming in from Bossfight. Kushbury still looking for that pick. He's going to try to go for a wide swing around this building right now. You can see players as well are taking out that tablet to check, but we'll talk about that more in a second as Smoils just picked up another kill, was able to successfully trade out onto Scooby-Doo. That brings Bossfight down to 3. Beginners may still have a chance at this now, but they brought it into a more palatable range, and there we go. Another kill found by them as well, as Scoochberry completes his flank around the building and is able to take out Hoochie.
It's a 2-on-2 situation now with 1 minute left on the clock. The beginners have brought this back.
Oh my goodness, and now Smoils has found another knockout against Mr. Death, so it's only one player alive from Bossfight. It's Legal. He's got a good spot, however, to find a trade against Kuchberries, takes him down, and now it's brought to a 1v1, but no! Smoils is waiting for him, and he takes him out, so it's the beginners that recover in the opening round and take it.
Bossfight losing the composure there, unfortunately. They had the upper hand, 4 versus 2. They didn't hold the lines. They got a bit panicky, and then they got picked off. And you cannot do that at this level of play.
That will give players from Beginners the opening advantage, and of course, now they will switch teams. Beginners will be jumping onto the defending side, and Bossfight will take on offense for this upcoming round. I think we did have a few players drop out of the server, so we're just working on getting them in. Already one of them has reconnected, and the fifth, I imagine, won't be too far behind either. So the second round should be starting any moment here, folks.
Yep, just some technical difficulties. It's rebooting in now, but the opening round shows what the matches we are looking to happen now. I mean, it went down to 1 versus 1. This isn't unusual between Bossfight and Beginners. These guys have played each other more than any other 2 teams in the league. And they know each other really well.
Take a look at some of the replays that we had throughout the course of the round here, too. This was, I believe, that nice flank that we had come in late in the round from Kuchberries. This was, I think, the start of the turnaround, basically. They had it down to a 2v3. We were able to bring it into a 2v2, and then from that point, we just saw so many players from their opposing team making mistakes positionally, catching them out, and from that point, it was just winning out the final 1v1, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, Mr. Death caught out, Hooch caught out. Legil kept his position, took down 1 player, almost traded with Smiles, but Beginners taking that first point, and that's a big deal because it means that they took the advantage off Bossfight, who started on defense. And in this game, on a lot of the maps, when you start in defense as Volk, you have the advantage because the players have to attack you. They have to push towards you. They're going for that uplink. If the time runs out, Volk gets 1 point. So Marsok cannot allow that to happen. So it means they have to step into the line of fire of the defenders. And they just took that point, which means now Bossfight are on the disadvantage, 1-0 down, and they have to now turn it around. Can they do it?
Remember, guys, once again, if any of you have recently joined the stream, it's 1st to 4 that will take this map, so they are about a quarter of the way there right now. And also, quick reminder again, that if you are able to get close enough to send a code to that uplink, remember that's that white dot that you can see at the bottom right of the radar. That is going to give you an additional point to give you 2 overall for the round.
Yep, and that changes everything. If you get that uplink, it literally changes everything.
At least one went
Very
north,
much
at least
can
one went north.
Completely flip around the status quo of a lot of matches. We saw that happening actually quite a bit, I think, as we got towards the end of our UK Invitational a couple of weeks ago. Yep. Quite a few very exciting caps. But here we go, folks. Both teams have been let out of their spawn boxes, and it's Bossfight now on offense, taking, I think, a majority northern route right now with 3 of their players swinging through there. Only 2 just hanging out at a more central position along the main street.
And we can see Beginners pretty much mirroring Bossfight's defense here. Maybe they have 2 north, I can't quite tell, but they have 2 south, and that's for certain. Well, we see Bossfight have given up that south approach, which is really interesting because it tends to be one of the more favored approaches by most teams in Onward.
Mr. Death giving himself quite a long-range scope to try and pick off players in this position down the street if at all possible, if that opportunity presents itself to him.
Well, he's a designated sniper, and he's known throughout the Onward community to be terrifyingly accurate.
So we'll keep our eyes out and see if we catch any headshots from him on the kill feed. But in the meanwhile, Wood's taken up a very similar position, pretty much the same exact position, in fact, that we saw Mr. Death using in the previous round here. Yep. So imagine if we see Bossfight take a southerly route, that they'll have quite a bit of action there. But more than likely, that's not going to happen with the current spread out of players we have on Bossfight. They've gone pretty much the exact opposite direction as their opponents did in the last round.
Bossfight taking the time. They're looking for the pickoffs. They're not going to push in yet. I think what we're going to see is a coordinated push. We're going to start seeing smokes coming in the north, and then we're going to see those 2 players that they've got in the mid pushing up through the middle, trying to put pressure on the defensive areas and allow the north team to actually successfully push in. Will we see it happen? Well, I don't know when, though. Because Bossfight also, we got probably two of the most, I want to say passive, well, not passive teams, but not aggressive. They're very, very unaggressive in the push styles. And you can see that the last match went down to the last minute. This one might do the same.
Yeah, we could see a great example of exactly what you're talking about with the way Sharku is peeking around this rock right now. He's doing such slow action. He does actually get a spot onto one of the players inside of the motel, I do believe. That 2nd story window, he's able to find out 1 player from the Beginners. Not a whole lot of luck in finding any action, but now that he's spotted at least one of his opponents, and that's a good feeling, I think, that he's probably going to be the only one in this area. He can throw smoke in his direction and use that to try and finally gain some momentum. And here he goes, right up past the smoke.
Risky play, though, because anyone on the other side could be able to catch him as he transitions, but he managed to make it then.
Yeah, like I
this
said,
is a big deal, and The return,
He's all the way
not seen
on
it.
the left side, so the closest
Still all
room
10 players
to our
alive,
house,
almost
second
halfway
floor.
through the round, in fact, at that point, still here as well.
Mr. Death looking for the pickoff now on the Motel player. He doesn't see it. He's repositioning around, though, just still looking for a long-range pickoff.
As Icy Woods, the same player who actually knocked Mr. Death out that he later in the round got revenge on too, so this could turn into a vendetta pretty quickly.
Mr. Death's like, you take me down, you need to make sure I'm dead, otherwise I'm going to come back for you.
I'm not going to let you do anything else the rest of this game now.
Absolutely.
Just for that kill. So we've got Lego. They're all just basically slowly swarming this Motel position. So
Grenade goes out towards Scooby, but it's too far. It doesn't take him out.
The main objective here now basically being to eliminate Icy Woods and take control of the Motel, which I think they can use as a pretty good springboard to start moving towards the uplink, actually.
2 minutes 40 left on the clock, and all 10 players still alive. Oh, Mr. Death down, not out, though. That's a big deal, though, because that's the pickoff player. That's the designated marksman down and out.
And that rivalry will continue to grow now as a result of that, as he finds the kill again. Smoke is going to be thrown out here as well by Bossfight to try and inch a little bit closer to the Motel, but again, no actual success in taking out Icy Woods. She said he's doing a great job of holding that hard point.
He's getting cover. They're getting like coverage fire on there as well. So a lot of the beginners players are repositioning to give him some defensive coverage, which makes it even harder for them to dislodge Icy Woods.
Still got Sharku trying to play around the tanker trains here as well. And he's now been joined, of course, as you can see, by Scooby-Doo. Icy Woods makes a little bit of an aggressive push, but amongst that, no. Smoils is actually going to be able to find another kill.
Yep.
Knocks out Coochie, bringing him down. And oh, look at this position from Kushberry. So strong, I imagine, against Sharku. And anyone else from Bossfight is going to try to wrap around. Is there not just 2 players standing here? Beginner's still at full 5.
Yeah, it's 2 versus 5, and Bossfight are not in a great position to actually push now. They still have to dislodge Icy Woods. And that coverage protecting Icy Woods, keeping that position alive.
See Scooby just trying to crouch around here. He knows he has a player behind that sand dune far out in the distance here, but he just can't find a good enough position. He's trying to, of course, by going down to the ground. He's actually just to our left right now.
Woods 43 down, not out though, but we saw the physicality of this game. I mean, right next to me, Scooby-Doo was lying down his side, taken down now by his brother, Icy Woods though. Icy Woods, that position, pivotal.
Icy Woods still continuing to hold on to that position. Another knockout is going to be found by Smoils. And that will be the final one of the round. Throughout the entire occurrence of the round, in fact, only one downing, not even a kill, being found at that point by Bossfight. So a great stronghold by the beginners to now put them ahead at 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the Bossfight team need to get out of their heads, because what you'll find, especially in a game that's this stressful, that's this intense, is that once you start losing that momentum, it's hard to bring yourself out of it. You start getting in your own head, you start playing more nervously, you're not making confident moves. And what we saw there was maybe some of that Mr. Death, who got taken down at long range. He was the guy with the sniper rifle. It should have been the other way around. Beginners, though, a team to be reckoned with. They're always at the top, and there's a reason for that.
Do you reckon that we had maybe a little bit of over-focus on trying to knock out Icy Woods and take control of that Motel position, or was that justified?
No, that was absolutely right. I think they focused too much on it, but they had to. They had the major approach was from the north, and you can't move from the north until you take out that Motel player.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know, they knew that. The beginners knew that the attack was coming from north. They repositioned some of the players to give Woods the support, and that's what paid off.
Well, we're going to see if they can hopefully correct that when they have their next chance at offense. But for now, they're back on defense. And as we talked about before, every 2 rounds, that uplink position is going to change. Each team has 1 chance to attack it, and then it will change to a random new position. I believe there's about like 3 or 4 on each map, but I think that varies.
Quarantine is one of the worst for it. There's about 8 or 9 on Quarantine. Some of them are really hard to defend. So we will see what the next one's going to be. But I mean, I think both teams are hoping that they don't get the objective in the middle, which is in the tank courtyard. It's known as the BS objective. Bad strategy objective.
Oh, okay, okay, gotcha. I was about to stop you there, but...
No.
But we'll keep that.
Me? No, I'm professional. I would never say anything negative on this stage.
But we'll keep that rolling, folks. And once again, that 3rd round will be getting started in just a second here. We should mention as well that in between each of these rounds, the players themselves get to go back into the tent where there's a little recreation of the map and a drawing board where they can actually mark for themselves any potential strategies they have in this tournament. Normally, I believe it's unlimited as it's just a lobby system. But for this tournament, we are limiting it to 2 minutes of strat time in between the rounds for teams to come up with a strategy and then jump back into their next engagement.
And here we can see Smoils. That's his kind of his avatar. Smoils.
Oh, is it?
Bring it out. Yeah, he's one of the most artistic people in the Onward community. He's basically a meme generator.
Did he make that hat himself?
Oh yeah, I believe so. Yeah, he got that 3D
yeah.
printed and brought it here. Unfortunately, he didn't make any for anyone else, but I mean,
unfortunate.
Beginners are clever, they're artistic, but they're not generous. That's unfortunate.
Well, we'll have to see if they're going to be a little bit more generous if they end up taking home that $25,000 pot that's up for grabs in first place, of course.
I'm not sure that's going to be any generosity involved there. But anyway, so we're just experiencing some minor technical difficulties. We'll be going into round 3 soon. We still don't know the objective yet. I do know, though, the next map that we're going to be seeing is Downfall, which is the longest range map that's played within the league, and really favors players like Mr. Death, the designated marksman.
So hopefully get to see him shine a little bit more on those maps, and I think we'll once again continue to see the slow play when we get onto that second map too. That's going to be a very common theme there, is because of just how open and, as you mentioned, long range that map tends to be. It's very dangerous to make any sort of movement or fast play. So you need to have absolute certainty that the play you're going to make won't end up in disaster.
Certainty, coordination, and patience. You can't rush in. You have to check your corners. You have to check the windows. You have to coordinate, and that's the key to a map like that. Just like it is with Quarantine, but more so on Downfall than any of the other maps, in my opinion.
It's a very, very tough map indeed. It'll certainly challenge our teams, especially the one that ends up on the losing end of this first map, as that will obviously put the added pressure onto them that they could be eliminated outright 0-2 and be sent home with, well, only $10,000.
Only $10,000.
Only 10,000, you know.
Chump change. Now, one thing worth mentioning is that Bossfight is the first time on live stage for them. Beginners were at the first Leicester Invitational. So they've got the experience. They've experienced this kind of pressure, whereas Bossfight are new to this stage. So maybe that's affecting them as well. Maybe there's kind of that extra level of pressure is new to them, and I don't know. Maybe we saw some of that. But their original defense was holding well until they started to lose composure, and maybe that was part of the problem, is the pressure they're feeling on this stage.
And I think for both of these teams as well, it's there's a little bit more added pressure just being at such a big event like this too, since we end up seeing obviously a much bigger audience for one compared to the kind of closed studio setting that we've often had back in the UK. So this is certainly going to be a step up, and it'll be another step up once we move into the grand finals again too.
Again, I cannot stress how amazing that stage is. Everyone who's watching this now, you need to stay tuned later on for the grand final. Whoever ends up on there versus Globochem, it is just insane, the level of quality and the size and just how epic that stage is.
Absolutely. And you guys, if you're watching the regular Oculus Connect stream, you probably saw it a little bit earlier during the keynote. That's going to be the same stage that we'll be on a little bit later on today for those grand finals, and that'll be very fun. But I believe you have something very cool to show us while we are waiting for that third run to get started and sorting out some player issues. I'll scooch out of your way here.
You know what?
To let you grab it.
It's a heavy object. We'll have to, it's not that heavy.
Go ahead and bring it up.
All right, so as you're viewing there, you might see a lot of players holding this is a Pro Tube or a Mag Tube. And if you imagine when you're holding 2 controllers in the game, you're trying to hold it as stable as possible, right? Especially on the long-range shots, and you have micro shakes. It's hard to hold 2 controllers in the air like that. So what a lot of players built themselves, and what we see here is not one that's built. This is one that's manufactured by ProTube VR, and you can see a lot of them using it. They hold both controllers like this, and it stabilizes. Stabilizes the aim. Yeah. It means they can do long-range shots with more confidence. They do this, and it holds, you know. Also, what we tend to see here, there's lots of abilities. Oh, we've gone into the next round. I'll go back onto this.
We can talk about that a little bit later. As you mentioned, we are getting back into the game now. But once again, that is the Pro Tube, and it's a very cool stock that a lot of our players use. In fact, well, I mean, we're getting into this action, so we'll have to talk about that in a little bit, as Hoochie has already been able to down Kushberries at the start of this round, giving Bossfight a little bit of advantage. But unfortunately, it's not going to stay that way for very long. It's now 2 players down. Thankfully, for beginners, though, they can still res their 5th player to end up going down. Bossfight, however, their 5th man is already down and out. And we did just see that revive go up onto Kushberries to bring him back into the fight.
So this is a North objective. It's one of the harder ones to defend and requires a lot of adaptation from the defenders. What we're seeing from here from Bossfight, though, is a really, really unusual defensive lineup. We'll see if it plays out for them, because... Oh, wow, killing it down.
Oh, nice.
Scooby-Doo with a grenade. Mr. Death, though, down Smoils. Down, not out on both teams, though.
That is another Hail Mary nade, though, that ends up finding a true target. Takes out an additional player from Bossfight. Mr. Death with his recent kill against Smoils, too.
Yep, takes him down. He had downed him, and now he's just confirmed that down. Bossfight still have a player down, though. Resable.
Now we are going to start to see Mr. Death creep in a little bit closer.
Oh, the flank is real. The flank is real, but what he doesn't realize is there is a beginner's player holding back, and Marso might pick him up.
Oh!
It's a double kill from Mr. Death now!
Not only that, but Woods is still here too. He's going to have to hold on to the line. Doesn't even realize what's happened just yet. Has Mr. Death seen him as well? As he's about to wrap in and close this out if he can find him. There's the shots, but no! Woods saves himself, actually, even though he did have the support from IC Woods a little bit further down. Once again by that motel position,
terrible
too.
2 brothers there, the last hope of beginners, but it's a 2 versus 2 situation unless Bossfight can find that res. Grenades coming out now. Hail Mary grenades or smoke grenades? Let's find out. It's explosive grenade, which went nowhere.
I'm going to judge from the base we just felt that was an explosive grenade.
Yeah, I felt it. I felt it. I know it is. So we got a 2-on-2 situation now. We're not going to see a res coming out from Bossfight. It's too risky to go out
Let's
there.
go to the north, Ali.
Can beginners find an opening? These two brothers obviously play a lot together, the brothers. I mean, but what you tend to see with two players that tend to play so much together is synergy, which makes a difference.
Legel here is going to find himself in a hot spot here in a second as well. If he continues to drift towards his left, he's got both players from beginners slowly closing in on him. And we do have the two brothers stacked together now, ready to make that one final push to try and close this round. Like I said before, they've got it into an even situation. It's at least been reduced down to a 2v2. They've got to be mindful as Bossfight does still have a third player in a down state that is resable. Although I think given his position, it's unlikely that we would see him getting back into the fight anytime soon.
Smoke wall is out, which covers that approach, which kind of signifies where they're coming from. Will we see get shut down by Hoochie? We don't. Woods takes down Hoochie. It's a 2-on-1 situation now for Bossfight, leaving the objective open. Will Legil be able to shut this down?
I'm going to go the other side.
Gil will be holding a little bit further back, a little bit closer, actually a little bit further away, I should say, from that uplink position, as beginners do have a direct path towards now. The problem is Legel, as you can probably see in the distance, yeah, he's got quite a high ground advantage in this situation.
He doesn't have the eyes. He's going to get picked off. He doesn't realize that he's been flanked to his right by Woods 43. He's waiting for Icy Woods to come out of that, not realizing how tenuous his situation is.
He at least does still have the hill to try and play off of here, so he might get a last-second sound cue, which would allow him to adjust, but let's see. Woods creeping in closer and closer. Just going to try to just judge from the tablet. He heard that explosion. Just want to make sure he's not alone here now.
Woods is going to pick this up. There's no way. Legil has no idea. He's 2-0'd in, and it's over.
There we go. Woods with an easy cleanup will claim the third round for beginners. So far, it's a massive streak from that. Even a salute to his brother in the distance there. But we do see the beginners picking it up, and that will put them only one more point away from claiming our first map in dominant fashion. A shutout, potentially, for our opening map of the series.
Well, I've seen Bossfight bring it back from further. Bossfight have been known, and it used to be the key mark thing. They'd be 3-0 down and bring it back. And they, in fact, have done this against beginners quite recently, maybe about 2 matches ago, they were in exactly the same position and managed to bring it back. Can they do it now? I'm not so sure. I think like the pressure is building and building and building. What they need is a release valve. One of the players needs to grab them and say, it's okay, we can still bring this back. It's only map 1.
And again, to reiterate, as we're probably going to see here in the replays, the trades are good. The kills are fine that we're seeing. It's just the ability to close out on the round. They either over-aggress, as I think we saw back in the first round. This was great as well. They're given these opportunities like this that Mr. Death and some of the other players keep opening up for them, but unfortunately, they're not able to follow through upon those opportunities heavily enough to actually close out the round, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the beginners, though, they adapt. This is one of the main things they do. They adapt. They're down to 2 players. They reposition. They're reconnected. And again, like I was saying, 2 brothers, the synergy between them, the fact they've played so much, that meant they can work off each other, know where the other player is going to be instinctively without having to worry too much about the communications. And like I've said before, and what Nightfire pointed out before, you don't have a mini-map, right? So you bring out the tablet, and you have to literally put your gun away, bring out a tablet to see where your teammate is. In this situation, because they work so well together and because they've played so much together, it's less. They have less reliance on that because they know where the other player is going to be. They've played so often together, they know how the other player is going to think. So that really works well for them, especially in an attack situation like that.
And we should mention again, the communication lines are also strained quite a bit too. Not only is it the lack of a mini-map, it's the lack of a complete awareness of whether you actually still have teammates alive or not as well. Once again, you have to check the tablet to be able to confirm that, as you'll only be able to see the dots, or you'd have to take a massive risk to click your radio, which again, if you're close to the enemies, that can be bad. But here we go, players being unleashed, and Mr. Death almost finding himself in exchange there early on, as we see a few bullets traded out between the 2 teams.
It's really important now for Bossfight. They are 0 points, and they need to take this to stay in with a chance to take map 1. Mr. Death is in a great position to try and get pickoffs, but he's been made. Smoke wall coming out, which we might see as a fake transition from Bossfight. Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, it's a fake transition from Bossfight. They're trying to fake out the beginners plays, trying to force them out to give Mr. Death some opportunities to take down some beginners players.
Regardless, we saw Bossfight getting a really close spawn to the uplink here, so we could more than likely see this round concluding a lot faster than some of our previous ones, just due to the nature of how closely they spawn to that uplink point.
Grenade comes out, it catches Shaku, wow, but he's going to be rezzed. There's no chance. I mean, there's 2 players next to him. No one in a position to pick up that double kill.
Good example right there of just how powerful the grenades are and how easily it can lead to a player's elimination. They have a pretty massive explosion rate.
It was a fantastic grenade as well. I mean, that takes practice. It's physicality. Again, there's no set area. You don't hold down a button and know the grenade's going to land exactly there. You literally have to throw the grenade, which means you have to have a throwing arm. It means you have to have accuracy. And we can see here, you see the same thing for Bossfight? No, 2 grenades going. 1 too far, 1 not far enough.
That's a bit unlucky, to be honest, given Icy Wood's position. You would have assumed at least one of those would have been close enough to do some damage, which it's still likely that it did damage. Just not enough to knock him down at this point. So he's going to be able to remain in that miniature crater. Still will as well be able to remain a problem for the Bossfight roster.
Mr. Death still looking for that long-range pickoff. Smiles takes down Hoochie and Scooby-Doo and Sharku. It's a 3 down. 3 Bossfight players taken down by 1 Smiles on top of a roof. Bossfight should have known better than that. Smiles is known on that position. That is not unusual for him to be up there, which puts Bossfight in a terrible 2 versus 5.
And we can see the remnants of that chaos here now. You're going to see the bodies on the ground. Legel, basically the only one still left in this position. He does have another teammate, but he's relatively far away from this spot. And Legel even has to be careful of players like IC Woods and our other member of beginners that's over there in the distance to the right, trying to flank onto him now. And he can even see he's calling out on the radio. He's trying to see if he still has a teammate rolling with him, and he does. He's got Mr. Death to support him, but Mr. Death is going to need to get there soon, as I believe beginners are starting to make a move.
Yeah, but 3 minutes 30 left on the clock. It gives Bossfight time to play. They don't have to rush this. They can take the time. They can call out together. They don't have to be an island. And what we see from like high-level teams is they take the time to reassess the situation. But with this level of pressure, I just don't know if Bossfight are going to be doing it. I don't hear any communications coming out from the Jill. I'm not sure Mr. Death is communicating either.
You're going to see Mr. Death come under a lot of fire here right now. He's trying to use the smoke to cover his escape, but it's the same story for Legel as well as he tries to wrap up around the corner.
It's clever suppression fight. They don't know they're there, but they're just bringing out shots just to warn them, like remind them, don't go near those dead bodies. I know you want to get that equipment. You're not going to get it easily, though.
It's just going to allow them basically to keep wasting time off of that clock, and it's just closer and closer to a 0 point where, again, as a quick reminder, beginners would become the victor of the round at that point since they are on defense. Bossfight, while they have regrouped their 2 remaining players together now to try and make that one final push, there's still a large distance between them, so while they can cover the same angles, if one gets knocked out into the downstate, it's very unlikely that we're going to see a res come out.
So what's really clever here, right, this was included in a recent Onward patch, is that we see that Mr. Death has traded his long-range sniper for a assault rifle with an LMG mag on it. So now he's swapped out his long-range abilities for a more medium-range ability, but with lots of ammo. 100 mag. It's straight in those bullets. He's not going to have to worry about reloading. And he's going to change up his tactics now. He's not looking for the long-range pickoffs. He's going to try and push in, make some close-range plays. You know what? I take it back. He had the other gun on his back, so now he switched to his long-range ability again.
He's got both options available to him, at least for the time being. And Legel still holds that back corner that we were seeing even a few minutes ago. Mr. Death, also with a long-range option here, has gone over towards the motel, even the street bridge here, too, to try and see if he can find anywhere out from it. Now behind the tankers, he's going to continue to look for any opportunities that might present to take out members of the beginners. And
it's a team kill from Smiles. He was so zeroed in on potential flanks coming in, he didn't realize it was actually a teammate who came around.
Now, thankfully, it's only a down, so if they really need to, they can try to wrap around and revive him.
Which is exactly what they're doing right now. They're wrapping around for the revive. Bossfight, of course, have no idea that team kill happened, so they're not making the most out of it. Minute 20 left on the clock. This is really putting them in a bad situation. Revive comes out.
And even if they weren't able to revive him, wouldn't have been, thankfully, a massive deal just yet, since it would have only brought it down to a 2v4. Beginners would have still had a pretty massive advantage. But, of course, 5 still being better than 4. They do prioritize getting him back up since their opponents are being passive.
Smiles is going in. He's going to pick up that 4th kill. He doesn't get the chance, though, because Woods picks it up before he gets there.
Smiles can still get into the fight there, however, as he's got another player across the street, but he hasn't seen him just yet. He's still focusing on the push from the other side, so Mr. Death is being given all this room to push in from the south position.
Mr. Death has no choice now to go close. Hard, personal, with his LMG gun out. Well, it's an assault rifle, but with an LMG mag. It's 1 versus 5. He takes down Woods. What an amazing shot there.
Smiles, though, has missed his chance. This is the problem. He waited too long to actually peek him, and now he's got to wait for him to poke his head out again, which he's done it relatively quickly, mainly because of the time that's set against Mr. Death.
30 seconds left. But look to his left. He's got Cushberries. He's ready to take him down as he makes the transition, and there it is. Cushberries takes him down. Bossfight. Lose map 1.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be the beginners that end up taking map number 1. That will push them ahead. A massive shutout for them at 4-0, and they're now only 1 more map away. Getting a ticket into the big arena behind us and the chance to claim $25,000 if they can take first place versus Globochem.
I mean, it was an intense match, but it wasn't as close as I'd expect from these two teams. I mean, maybe Bossfight really are feeling the loss of Scorpio, who, you know, again, one of the playmakers. Unfortunately for Bossfight, they've got 2 players with 0 kills. Are they feeling the pressure, or is that just unfortunate? And will they have the chance to redeem themselves on the next map, which I believe is Downfall? Yeah,
and if that's the case, again, playstyles, I imagine, are going to remain relatively similar, if not even slower than what we saw in that previous map, because going on to this next map, the theming of it very similar in terms of the landscaping and all that, but it's just there's even less cover to work with here now.
Less cover, longer range, much more sniper availability. And I think this was Bossfight's pick, which is an odd choice because Downfall is one of the maps where it's easiest to defend. So Bossfight chose this knowing they'd have to be attacking. So that puts beginners with a heavy advantage. And coming out of that, Bossfight need to ready up. They need to get their heads in the game. Beginners are going to be riding that high. They just shut out Bossfight 4-0. And I think we're going to see maybe a swap out. I think maybe Cushberries is swapping out. No, he's staying in. It's the same lineup, I believe, from beginners. Same lineup from Bossfight as well. Is he going to go to 3 maps? I hope so, just for the entertainment factor, because it always does between these 2 teams.
Well, we of course would want that, but ideally, if one of our teams is able to get that shutout, that is going to push us forward a little bit and only leave us with the grand finals to look forward to, along with, of course, the unspoken finals that are still going to be coming up. We just want to remind you about that real quick. That's going to be coming up a little bit later on here today.
Yep, that's going to be exciting to watch. But I'm obviously, being an Onward guy, more looking forward to that grand final for Onward. But honestly, I mean, it doesn't matter which team goes through from this. They're going to put up a good fight against Global Chem. Global Chem are the #1 team in the Onward world, and they have been holding that position for a while. But both of these teams are capable of beating them.
And it's been for multiple months now that they've held that position. Even going back to the start of this season when we had the Invitational in June, back over in the UK studio once again, they were able to claim victory there. Now they weren't part of our previous Invitational that we had back in September, back in this month actually, in the UK studio, because that was part of the qualification leading up to this, and well, they won the first event, and that qualified them for this, so obviously we didn't need them there.
But we saw SMC Tactical almost toppled them. They came so close. They were 2 points away from doing it. They almost got the uplink, which would have put them 1 point away from doing it, which would have put Global Chem on such a back foot. It wasn't to be, but we see that Global Chem aren't unbeatable. I mean, they almost lost the entire thing with 2 points, with the only thing remaining, the only thing keeping them in it. So, I don't know. Let's see what Bossfight and beginners can bring. Depending, either team that goes through, we're going to see a good match.
Well, we have some highlights, I believe, from the first map to take a look at, so we can once again preview those and see how exactly the first map panned out. And again, it was a story of both teams finding some relatively successful plays throughout the course of all these rounds, but at the same time, it was also the story of beginners just picking up so many clutch opportunities, so many round wins themselves, just by either one player winning at a 2v2 or...
Did you see the reaction from Wood 43 then? The 2 teammates next to him go down, and he ducks to the floor and twists around in one motion. It's what saved him. So basically, Mr. Death didn't see him because his reactions were on point, and he dropped to the floor as he heard the shots ringing out around him. If Death had picked him up, it would have been a very different story for Bossfight on that round.
And in that instance, that was able to not only buy him additional time, but get him ready for the eventual repeat that we saw from Mr. Death, where he himself was able to pick up the trade finally there. Well, even had assistance from his brother a little bit further down the map, but didn't even end up needing that as he was able to pick up the frag himself.
No, absolutely. The Woods brothers really showing what they're capable of in this last map.
And we showed it on stream earlier, by the way, guys. We just want to give another call out to them as well. We can see the stocks that our players are using. Quite a few of them, in fact, that are using. That's the Pro Tube once again, and we'll have Radarhead bring up his. It's very cool.
Here's one I made earlier.
Yeah. Oh, did you? Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
You've got a carbon fiber creation capabilities in your house.
I do. It's I don't want to brag, but when I make things, I make them well.
All right. Yeah. We have seen the one you actually made. I think at the UK. Yes, you want to tell the folks about that one?
The PVC
that one was
pipe.
Very creative.
It's called the poop tube. It's just made out of PVC pipe. Used for drainage and such. It's not quite up to the level and caliber of these, but it's served me well. It's got me places. It's got me one or two kills, and I'm proud of my creation.
Yeah, you really had to scrap that thing together. I think you told us you had like a candy wrapper stuffed in one of the parts of it as well.
I wasn't exaggerating. There's literally a candy wrapper stuffed in it to basically make sure 2 of the pipes stay stuck together. I'm proud of my creation.
It's very, very cool ingenuity we saw from you.
Well, it makes a difference. Again, you need that stability. And as we go now into map 2, Bossfight versus beginners, Bossfight, 1 point down. They need to take this map to stand a chance to go into that final.
All right, guys. Well, here we go. This is Downfall once again that we're going to be seeing our teams play on, and you'll find out soon once more that the map leaves very few options in terms of cover just because of its raw size alone, really.
Bossfight as Volk, which is unusual. I thought they would be taking the defense.
Won't be the case. We are going to have beginners starting off on offense to start here.
Oh, I think the names might be the wrong way around, unfortunately.
I think you're right,
actually Bossfight on offense, beginners on defense. Bossfight well known for taking this objective. They've taken that objective quite a few times against high-profile teams as well. You know, that 2-pointer. When I say taking the objective, I mean going in for an uplink. Now, as we said before, going in for an uplink is a really big deal because it means you have to put your weapons away, you have to memorize a 7-digit code, pull out a tablet, go in undefended, you can't defend yourself, and then remember that 7-digit code, uplink it. The entire time you're under fire, you don't know what's going to happen, your hands are shaking. It's a big play and it takes a lot of guts to do it. Most
circumstances, that player's usually surrounded by smokes as well, so you can't even really see anything that well. It's just not a very friendly situation to be in, unfortunately.
We didn't see any caps, I don't believe, come out between SMC and Globochem. It was close. It was close. But we didn't see it. Will we see it between Bossfight and Beginners? Bossfight known for capping a lot against Beginners, so Beginners are going to be quite paranoid about that. Now let's see these setup positions here. We can see there's a Beginners player in the White House, which is a house on top of the hill, which gives them a lot of tactical oversight. We can just see it on the top left-hand corner of the screen right now. Bossfight patiently looking for a pickoff, trying to ascertain the defensive positions of Beginners right now.
Yeah, Bossfight initially was looking like they were actually going to cut directly into that South Valley, which, from my experience anyway, is a very, very common insertion point for teams on offense on that uplink point. But it looks like they're maybe thinking about some other options here too. As of course you guys have seen, they've cut 2 players away from this and sent them way up to the north now.
Interesting play, and I don't think Beginners realized where Bossfight were. I think Bossfight have been keeping their head down. And you look at you can see on the mini-map in the bottom right-hand corner that most of Beginners players are looking towards the north. They're not really checking this approach from Bossfight. It's a shame Bossfight didn't push through the valley, because I think they would have made a great play through. Meanwhile, 2 players heading north, 3 players south, communications coming out, 0 kills on either side, 3 minutes 40 on the clock.
Yeah, it's still going to remain a very passive fight, as we talked about before. This map ends up playing out relatively slowly for the first 3 minutes or so, until we see that first engagement between the 2 teams. Then we end up seeing, I think, teams get a little bit more aggressive with their actions, or maybe even doubling down on the defense in some cases to slow it down even further. But the timer will eventually force our offensive team into the fight. In this case, it's the Beginners once again on offense here.
Shaku trying to get a peek over the rocks. I mean, it's a well-known position. It gives you lots of cover. But, I mean, we can see here, neither team managing to find anything at the moment. Now, it's really important. Like, you saw Scooby-Doo below the White House calling out communications. And as we stated before, the proximity in this game is important. When you speak in-game. It comes out of your avatar. You speak into the radio. They can't hear you through the radio, but they can hear the words you speak. So when Scooby's saying stuff, the guy in the White House could hear him. He couldn't hear necessarily exactly what he's saying, but he hears the audio. He knows there's a player down there, which means he's going to react. It means he can call in that situation. Players have adapted to this in a way. You know, some of the communications, a lot of the communications are done via Morse code of sorts. You know, 1 click, yes, 2 clicks, no. Obviously not Morse code, but, you know, the origins are the same. And some are even more advanced than that. You know, like 3 clicks, that means an enemy's close to me. Lots of clicks, I'm going in for a cap. You know, it's trying to communicate without giving away your position to the enemy.
You think it might be insightful to actually, like, learn Morse code at a certain point if you could. You might have a little bit of trouble getting the dash in there, but...
yeah, no, I think you could do it. I think you could do it. And I think the more dedicated teams may eventually adopt it. Maybe not yet, but now that there's money on the line. That's a great grenade there. It doesn't find anyone, though. Meanwhile, Cushbreeze takes down Legil.
And that's going to be able to finally see our first kill coming for the Beginners. He'll be able to knock out one of Bossfight's players. And there will be no room for a res on that one, unfortunately. He just goes directly down.
Oh, so it was one of the north pushers. Now they've transitioned a 3rd Bossfight player around there. We've only got 2 in the south, which is unusual for Bossfight. Usually they tend to do a heavy 5-man push south.
And they are spending a lot of time setting this up with the way it's working out. I mean, realistically, we're only going to end up seeing them with, I would say, a minute max to actually try and push onto the uplink itself.
Scooby-Doo's going for the push, but Icy Wood's got his eyes in the window and he takes down Shaku.
Of course, he's going to be able to hear his opponent coming in, but no! Dr. Killinger coming in for the support there. Not only save Icy Woods, but find another kill against Scooby-Doo, too. The entire southern push has been eliminated. Woods has found another pickup against Mr. Death, and it's down to only 1 here from Bossfight now.
Bossfight are feeling the pressure. They need to get their heads in the game. The tactics they used on this approach, questionable, and it's not paying off for them at all. We can see Beginners holding the line quite comfortably. It's a 5 versus 1 situation with only 1 minute and 10 left on the clock. I can't see the single Bossfight player pulling this out of the bag.
So everyone from Beginners, of course, is just going to be sitting nice and safely tucked away inside of the current positions they hold. There is quite literally no reason for them to get aggressive at this point, as it would only serve to be an advantage for Hoochie, the last standing member of Bossfight.
Hoochie, one of the more, I want to say experienced players. Like I said, he's locked in a lot of hours on this game. He's also 40 plus, let's say. He's a more experienced person than maybe more esports players tend to be.
That's a fair assessment.
Yeah,
That's a relatively fair assessment.
36 seconds left on the clock, and Hoochie's playing slowly. I don't think he realizes how little time he has left.
Well, we've got him pushing forward regardless. He's going to have to make this last Hail Mary attempt to get himself on the uplink.
He literally has no time to waste. There's 20 seconds left. He has to, if he wants to get an uplink, he would have to run non-stop and then start entering. He's going to get taken down in 3, 2, 2.5. How did he? No, he's dead. No, Kushburi picks him up. And that's map 2, round 1, going to beginners on defense. Bossfight, not even picking up a single kill. Smiles accidentally shooting himself in the face.
Always fun to see that as well, as he gets a little bit too ramped up in his celebration. But hey, he's already won the round at this point, so no negatives against him. And it's the beginners that once again cut ahead at the start of the map, claiming the first point for themselves, only 3 away now from a spot on the stage right behind us.
Bossfight can still pull this back. They were known for picking up caps on this map against high-profile teams. Globochem, for instance, in the last game against Globochem, Bossfight managed to win this map via a cap. And in fact, against beginners, they also got a cap on this map. So I think we might see it again. I think that's going to be Bossfight's objective. But first, they need to hold a defensive round on the same objective. As you said before, it's mirrored. So you see the same objective now. Beginners will be attacking the same one. Bossfight will be defending the same one. Will we see a mirror of the defensive positions? Probably not, but there'll be some similarities there.
And the thing I've noticed as well is a lot of the times we've actually seen uplinks go off successfully is the defending team a lot of time doesn't even notice it's happening. It's one player that is able to sneak in through one point on the map that isn't being defended appropriately and just manages to find himself inside of the... There's one uplink that's directly next to a garage, if memory serves me correctly, and players.
Yep.
There's one player that's able to sneak into there. I think that we saw back at our UK Invitational,
yeah,
sneak off an uplink. And like I said, I don't think his opponents had any idea that he was even doing it, so I imagine it was a massive surprise when they got that notification that they had lost the round.
There's basically 2 ways of doing it, right? Well, we'll see the replay of Hooch now making that last Hail Mary play, surviving more bullets than he should have, but ultimately getting taken down before he got into position. But no, so when going for the uplink, there's 2 general approaches. There's either the sneaky, 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 they don't know I'm here approach, or there's the everyone shoot, create as much noise as you can while that player doesn't so much sneak in, but just pummels his way in, and you try and keep the defensive players suppressed down while you get that uplink.
And you basically just hope that they didn't notice that.
Yeah, pretty much,
basically. Yeah. So once again, folks, same as before, the players are right now back in the tent and figuring out a strategy for the upcoming round. They should actually be very close to the end of that, and I think we're also looking at one player's PC, so that's probably going to add about another minute or 2.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out the Pro Tube for maybe the 3rd time now.
Okay. And
I'm going to try, providing that this doesn't start straight away.
I think you got a minute, so you should be good.
So this is the Pro Tube, like I was saying, and one of the main things about it is that you can adjust everything here. So there are going to be certain guns which require, sniper rifles are longer, so you need to hold it a longer level. Submachine guns, you need to bring it more compact. And what this means is that you can actually adjust every single one of them. When we see players, you see the stocks, a lot of them are at weird angles, and that's because they're setting it up so it's correctly lined up for the length of their arms, for the guns they like to use, and also, things like grenades. One of the great things about this is called a mag tube because there's magnets here, right? So they can detach, grab the grenade, throw the grenade, reattach. And because it's a magnet, locks back in, and it's great. It gives you that support. It gives you the ability to do long-range shots. Not every player does it. Not every player uses it. Not every player needs it. But for most players, this is a game changer, especially in the long-range games. And this one, I think, has like a new ability, which I believe allows them to have some force feedback when they fire. So when you start firing, it actually starts like rattling against your shoulder.
Very cool.
It gives that other added added depth to the. You can't necessarily hear it.
I can hear it.
Yeah. So
yeah, you can hear that clicking.
Yeah, so it makes a difference. It's that when you're in virtual reality, of course, what you see, what you hear is that world. And this is just another layer on top, right?
Yeah.
You're feeling, you've got the gun stock against it, you've got your head against it. When you pull the trigger and you feel the vibrations in the actual, against your shoulder like you would kind of in real life, it's that extra level of immersion. And, like I said, it's a game changer for competitive shooters in VR.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we've seen here at this tournament, we've seen a lot of our players using it as the main focus of it basically is that without this, it's very hard to stabilize your gun, especially if you're having to take on the role of like a designated marksman or something like that. Holding the 2 controllers in the air, it's still kind of an ethereal object, so you're not able to hold your 2 hands together, and it's a bit hard to hold the gun stable because of that. That adds an actual physical object, and obviously makes it a lot easier to hold the gun more stably. And obviously, even in some cases, if you have to go for like a big spray or something like that, it probably makes it a bit easier to control the spray too.
It absolutely does. It absolutely. And what we saw at the end, it's one of the things I haven't mentioned is that, okay, why do the players not run around holding the gun in one hand? I mean, why do you need to? I mean, obviously, you can stabilize the front of the aim, but why can't he just hold the grenade in the left hand and the gun in the right hand? Well, what we saw with Smiles then celebrating is that when you fire without holding the front of the gun, it kicks upwards.
Yes.
And it kicked upwards so much in that case that it shot him in the face. And that is why we see players holding the gun with 2 hands.
From my experience, you're able to somewhat do dual wielding with pistols, but that's about it, basically.
Oh, you can't dual wield in an Onward.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
But,
I'm thinking of the wrong game.
But you really want to, though. When you're holding that pistol in your right hand and you pick up that pistol in your left hand, it's kind of like a bummer that you can't. Because it just feels, even though it would be unrealistic, even though you would do terrible in this because it is a mil sim, you'd still feel like a, you want to go to Johnny Wu kind of.
I'm thinking of that, you know, like epic end of the movie moment, right? You're stuck in the base, surrounded by enemies. You've got one guy you took down, his pistol's on the ground. That's when you'd grab that and just bust it out Akimbo style, right? Just go out in a blaze of glory, so to speak.
Well, I believe the developer for Onward is here. Maybe he's listening. Maybe he might add that in as a future update. The ability to dual wield pistols. Or dual wield LMGs. Who knows?
Snipers too, maybe?
Yeah, why not? Why not? While we're at it, why don't we just, dual wield shields as well? Just go in with a shield. Absolutely. Let's just throw it all out.
So, turn into a melee weapon at that point, basically.
Absolutely.
Just start bashing people with the shield.
Or you can have like 2 or 3 players all with double shields, just create a giant shield wall just defending one player with a gun.
That's like a Spartan line at that point, Take
you
it back
shall
to
not pass.
Yeah. Well, once again, folks, like we said before, we are still working on one of the players' computers, just to my left, in fact. And as soon as we do have that issue fixed, we're going to be jumping back in with the second round of this map to see if the beginners can continue on their conquest forward, or if their opponents still have a little bit of fight left in them to maybe take this to a third map.
Well, it's worth noting, I mean, we've got 10 stations set up here. Okay, very high tech. With each one of them has 4 sensors. Sometimes, this isn't like just playing a 2D game on a console or a 3D game. But this is virtual reality. It takes a lot of hardware processing power. It takes a lot of these sensors, and they're fantastic sensors. But sometimes all it takes is there's lots of people moving around, there's cameras moving around, a knock, a hustle. It can knock something out of alignment. At home, I have a great Oculus setup. I've got the 4 sensors in the corner of my room, so nobody can knock anything. Obviously, you can't do that in this giant stadium. You can't have it in the corners of the room. So it's forgivable. In this situation, we're in a live situation. It happens.
I think if we put them in the corner of the room, the sensors might be just a bit out of range for that.
No,
just
Oculus,
a tad.
Oculus is so good. I have no doubt in my mind. Even though, it's like 100 or 200 meters down there, I think it'd be fine. It'd be fine. It'd be fine.
Well, we'll have to maybe experiment with that a little bit later on today if we have some free time for that. But
I'm not sure we're going to have any free time because we've got the Unspoken, I believe, finals to go to, and then of course the grand final onwards on the main stage, which I cannot wait to watch and cast with you.
We got to get ready for that right after this, in fact. I think we're going to be heading in there and getting prepped for it. I'm excited for sure. And for you guys here in the audience, again, we do want to invite you to come out for that, which is going to be happening a little bit later on today. It'll get to the grand finals, the winner of Season 2, the VRL for Onward, of course. We still have all of our other games as grand finals, including the Unspoken one, which is going to be happening today. And tomorrow, we'll also be having the Echo Arena finals, along with Sprint Vector's final heat in the morning as well.
Yeah, it's a lot to look forward to. And again, this is like a burgeoning esports spectacular. It's VR. It's the next level of gaming, in my opinion. Again, I mean, I'm a long-term gamer. Like from the age of 3, I've had a computer. I've always been playing games my entire life. And the moment I tried out an Oculus Rift, it was the CV1. It was at Gamescom. I think it was with Eve or something. I was instantly blown away. I was like, this is the future. I couldn't wait. Checking on updates. I didn't buy a CV1. I couldn't afford it at the time. But the entire time, just excitement, waiting for Oculus to release. And then when Facebook picked up Oculus, that was a game changer. Suddenly, like this giant company's picked up this forward-thinking technology, excitement through the roof, and it's not disappointed. Like game after game, Onward. There's lots of great games on the Oculus platform. Lone Echo, etc. Like Echo Arena, great games, and they're just so immersive. They really drag you in, and this is the future of esports, in my opinion. It's not there yet, but it's getting there, and it's only, especially with Oculus Quest now. You don't need a high-spec PC to play it. You can play it in the garden. You don't need to, this is going to be a game changer. That means more people have the access to this kind of like playable VR anywhere. You don't need to one of the key problems to play something like Onward on Oculus is that you need the room to move around. This is a very physical game. You're throwing grenades. It's very much kind of unleashed us, basically, from the tethers of a PC, even in that case. You don't need even that anymore with the Quest. Now I can go outside of my garden and play it.
I do have to interrupt you here for a sec, as unfortunately we've got to head to a short break here really quickly, folks. Once again, we are working on those issues as quickly as possible, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes with the continuation of this series, the winner moving on to the grand finals here at Oculus Connect 5.
Yep.
Virtual Reality League Season. The grand final is going to be coming up in just a couple of hours in the main stage in the room behind us. But here, we're still on the esports stage, bringing you guys all the action from the semifinals leading up to that very, very grand match that we're going to be having tonight.
So far, Beginners on a 5-point streak right now. Bossfight not picking up a single point. Will they be able to break it? I'm sure they're hoping so. They've been discussing tactics right now this entire time. They haven't been wasting it. And here we go into round 2, map 2.
And once again, folks, quick reminder for anyone that may have sat down and has never gotten a chance to see Onward before. You can see Beginners already has 1 point to themselves. It's the first team to get to 4 points that will end up taking the map. And in this case, for the Beginners, as they're ahead, they will also take the series as they took our previous map a little while ago back on Quarantine.
So it's the same objective that we just saw played by Beginners in defense. Now they're on offense. Bossfight taking a much different approach to the defense. Beginners also taking a much difference to the offense. So they're taking a big south approach. None of the players going north. As Bossfight were doing, they're looking for the pickoffs, not finding anything yet. But we're going to see an engagement very soon. There's no doubt about that.
Basically going to be moving in on the small portion of the village that they themselves actually get a decent amount of access to. And it's Lego from Bossfight actually that I saw there a moment ago that was getting pretty aggressive going into that valley and trying to carve in through the south a little bit, seeing if he can get aggressive with it. But oh no, Mr. Death is apparently going to mistake him for an enemy and take him down.
It's a team kill coming out by Mr. Death, a mistake, and he's given away his position now. Yep. If you look to the absolute south of the minimap, you can see there's a Beginners player going very far into the hills, which is an unusual tactic, but it could really pay off for them.
Wait, I can see someone's gone jumping on the Marshall Bridge.
Yes, in certain respects there, so we're going to have to see how that plays out for him, but he is still in the playable area of the map for the time being.
Mr. Death will be kicking himself right now. Does he even realize there's a team kill? Probably. The enemy team certainly do. They've spotted the dead body and they know they didn't kill him, so they're going to be celebrating that accident. Now, this is a really important position that Mr. Death is in. He's been taken down. He double peeked through a window and got paid the price.
Stayed in that window for far too long as well, so pretty much opened up the opportunity for that extra kill to come back in. So once again, we've seen Bossfight drop an additional player, and with one still down as well, if we don't see him getting back up soon, they're going to be down to just 3 for the rest of the round to play out with.
It's too risky. I cannot see a Bossfight player going up there to pick him up. It means you'd have to run out in the open up a hill, and he would definitely get taken down at this point. And I think they know that. They're not going to risk it.
I see Woods in the meantime just going to go for a bit of a face check there into the valley to make sure no one else was left straggling from Bossfight. Won't be finding anyone out there.
They don't. I don't know if Beginners know they took out Mr. Death, but the problem is he's in a window, right? So you can't see. Maybe he dropped down really quickly because he's got very fast reactions. Maybe they took him out. I'm guessing they think that they at least injured him. So they're wary. They're not taking it for granted that position is now undefended.
That would hopefully be the case. And again, folks, remember that kill feed that you're seeing here in the middle of the screen whenever we see action. The players don't see that. The only way they can tell who's alive and who's down, well, they can only tell for their teammates, and that's by pulling out the tablet that's on their back and checking to see basically how many dots are left.
So on the tablet, they'll see a red cross, which shows that there's a player down but resible, and also that down player can still use the communications to say, I am down, and still radio in really important information. However, he's just not going to get a res.
Yeah, in this case, it's not looking like it's happening. We've got smokes being tossed out, at least here now by the Beginners to try and push themselves forward.
3 minutes left on the clock. The smoke in the valley approach, they can do a transition across without being taken down. Again, Wed's checking that window. He doesn't know that he's taken down Death, or isn't certain of it at the very least. He's not taking it for granted, and that's very important.
Smoils is also making himself a big push too, and because of the amount of death we've seen against Bossfight's favor, he's actually going to pretty much have this entire northern route free for the taking, basically, as I don't imagine Bossfight are going to be paying too much mind to that because of all of the fighting we've seen happening in the South Valley.
Yeah, they can't take their eyes off the prize, though. They're a good team. They're better than to leave an entire flank wide open, I'd say. However, Smoils has got into a great position, and he's going to be able to take out Sharku from that spot if Sharku isn't careful. Beginners now pushing up heavily in the south. It's looking like now with 2 minutes left on the clock, they're getting themselves into position to try and go for that cap. Now, if they get that cap, it's game over for Bossfight, really. It's going to put them on a 3-0 disadvantage.
And only 2 rounds in as well, so Bossfight not even really going to be left with enough time to try and figure out what's going wrong for them and come up with counters to that. Sadly, Beginners are just pulling them over right now. It's going to be IC Woods with another kill here now for the Beginners. He's taken out Hoochie.
And that leaves the objective wide open now with only Sharku. Scooby takes a pickup on Woods, though.
So finally, a little bit of light being seen here for Bossfight, but unfortunately, it probably won't mean much as we're down to just Sharku. And more than likely, Woods is going to get a spot on him in a second, or at least you'd think that, with the way that they're looking at each other right now. The Woods just not paying too much mind to that wall. And that could be the death of him if he's not careful. And now we actually see his perspective. I can understand this a little bit better, actually.
What's really important to point out, though, from Shaku's position, he can cover both sides of that objective, which is really, really key, because ultimately, that objective, you can only cover one side at a time. It means if you are on the one side, the other player can run into the basement and cap it from there. If you're on the basement side, the player can run into directly on the objective and just put the code in. So Shaku's in a great defensive position here. However, I'm not sure he realizes how tenuous it is. I don't think he realizes that. Oh, smoke's coming in from his left, so he is aware that a push could be coming.
I actually just heard a call from our left side here as well to ask if Shark is aware of where you are. So I think that they're kind of wary of that being a possibility, and they're going to try to move around. But I think that that does mean they know Shark's in that position.
Shaku down Smiles, doesn't kill him though.
They've got the smoke on top of his spot here now as well. So Smiles can still be back up, worst case scenario. Sharku being the last man standing.
Killing going to go for the cap though. Shaku's taking his eyes off the prize, and Killing is now going to be getting a cap. He downs Woods, he doesn't realize Killing is uploading though. It's a big play. If Killinger gets this, he's going to put 3-0 on Bossfight. He gets it. It's 3-0 to Beginners. Bossfight now on 0 points, and Beginners 1 point away from taking this.
Dr. Killinger even running out there as well after sending the code to knock out Shark, who is a little bit of a victory pose for himself, and that will push them ahead. Now they're only 1 more point away from claiming victory. Probably our fastest match we've seen so far today, and that will put them into the big house behind us for the grand finals.
Beginners on a 7-point streak now. Bossfight feeling this pressure. Can they pull it back? I mean, a 7-point streak. Oof. Mr. Death on -1 as well. We saw him doing a lot in quarantine, but now on -1, it's just a horrible place to find yourself.
And unfortunately, the story that I was telling before, where I'd kind of been phrasing these rounds is relatively close. We've been seeing a lot of really good trades between the teams, a lot of just really good individual plays coming out from Bossfight as well that gave them chances to win rounds. Those have pretty much vanished on this map, unfortunately, and they've, again, it's unfortunate, but they've kind of been getting run over here a little bit.
Yeah, it's a very one-sided game at the moment, and unfortunately, I think the added pressure and the fact that Bossfight haven't been on a live stage is showing, and Beginners are showing, handling the pressure much better, and I think part of that is because they've been in this situation before, whereas Bossfight, this is the first time up here.
We've got at least 1 more chance, and that'll be the next round. Again, players back in the tent, strategizing, drawing on the board, trying to find strategies for themselves. And in about a minute and a half here, we will be throwing them back into the map to fight one last time, potentially anyway, for their survival.
Yeah, Bossfight, they know what's up against here. They need to get themselves into this game. They need to make the opportunities happen. Even if they only get 1 point, they don't even have to go for the cap. They just need to get 1 point on the board, and that will give them the momentum they need to try and bring this back. It's not over yet. It's to the edge, though. And the fact that Beginners just got that uplink, it's going to be a hard one for them. And I think we are going now into what might be the final round.
There we go, folks. Jumping back into it once again. It's the Beginners on defense. This final uplink point is all that stands between them and a spot in the grand finals, and potentially to $25,000 in prizing if they can take home the top prize against Globochem in the grand finals.
Yep. Here we go now. Bossfight know what's at stake. They've got something to prove now. They're a team that doesn't lose this badly against Beginners usually, and obviously, like I said, it usually goes to the final point. Is it the lack of Scorpio? Is it the pressure? Is it the combination? Is it the lack of me, maybe? I'm going to say it's the lack of me.
A bit bold of yourself. Well, you'll have to have a word with them a bit later, I suppose, then.
No, I mean, this is a high-stress situation, and I don't blame them for what's happening right now.
I believe they can, yes.
So it's Dr. Killinger now in the center hotel in a really great position. It's really hard to pick out that player because he's a player that's dressed in black in a shadow. So he gives away his position, repositions. Bossfight now.
Enemy down inside the north hotel.
That pick.
Middle hotel, sorry.
Mr. Death thinking he's got a pick off there. He thinks he took down Killinger, but he doesn't realize that Killinger just had very fast reactions and ducked the shot. And reactions in this game, as in every FPS game or any game really, reactions are so important. And there we see me dropping to a knee. Well, it fooled the attacker into thinking he'd actually got the headshot.
So we'll see if that comes back to bite those guys a little bit, as they might be under the assumption that the building that you can see across the way here, the building that Dr. Killinger is in, the guys on Bossfight might be under the assumption that that is a safe building to cross, when that is certainly not the case. Killinger can still pose problems, and I mean, we can see that right there. Mr. Death having his head out in the open for that long could have been very dangerous if Dr. Killinger decided to make a push.
And he might do. I mean, Killinger isn't backing away. He's popping up, he's popping up, he's popping up. It only takes Death to have his head in the wrong place at the wrong time. And here it comes. It's a grenade rather than a shot, but is it going to get him? It does! And then he shoots him and takes him down and finishes him. That was a fantastic grenade. It went in between a tiny cap, in between the APC and the wall. A little bit of luck, a lot of skill.
Leaves nothing left for that player on Bossfight. Very well played by Dr. Killinger. As you said, the immediate repeat as well to finish him off. He knew it probably wasn't going to take him all the way out right there. But of course, that just reaffirms that he is still alive and still has control of that building.
Worth noting, a single grenade can never completely kill a player if that player hasn't taken damage prior. So that grenade going in, taking him down, would only ever take him down. Like you said, the fact that Killinger stood up immediately and double tapped it, he waited for that grenade to go off and stood up to see if it caught him, and it did. And it was a very, very successful attack. I think the fact that Mr. Death called out he'd taken out Killinger set him up for that loss. That lack of communication, that lack of information. Information in this game, so important, knowing the positions of the enemies, knowing what their approach is going to be, knowing how to defend against it. It cannot be stressed how important it is.
I think oftentimes it can very much be the setup and the precluding action to that very long final battle that we see in a lot of rounds that actually ends up deciding the result of that battle a lot of times, basically.
Yeah, if you can map out the enemy defensive or offensive positions, that means you can adapt to it. It means that as a team, you can communicate, and now Killinger picking up Legil. 3 boss fight players left.
And remember, guys, this is it. This is map point right here. This is series point as well for the beginners. As with the victory on this round, they will be able to push themselves forward into the grand finals. You can see a nice little tactic that we've seen a lot of players use here too, is actually, if they're holding a static building for the entire round, they actually will go and put their tablet on the ground nearby so they can kind of keep a constant eye on radar to be aware of where their teammates are positioned. Yeah,
and it really makes a difference because when you get the tablet out, it makes a noise. So if there's any offensive player that's snuck up on you and you keep getting that tablet out, the offensive player knows you're there. So if you're not picking up that tablet, you can be silent, and it makes a world of difference.
So here we go, Bossfight starting to move out an inch closer and closer into the main village where the uplink is positioned. You can kind of see it under the power lines towards the top of the screen. That's what these players are going to be following, trying to get towards. Unfortunately though, with the uplink in its current position, it's going to be very hard with the route Bossfight have chosen to get there without pretty much having to go through the entire beginner's roster. In fact, Woods in a second here may have an opportunity to pick up a few kills if he stays patient enough.
Now, Bossfight know the beginners like to take this position. You can see Sharku checking that window. I don't think he's aware there's going to be 2 beginners taking up a defensive position upstairs and downstairs. And even if he takes up the top player, that's going to be the same situation as we saw with Killinger, where he might drop his guard and then just get shot in the back. Smoke's coming out now, I think.
Should give a little bit of coverage for Sharku, and I can hear the hissing, so I believe that is a smoke indeed. Sharku is going to try, I think, to make a move for the building and finally eliminate Dr. Killinger. But remember, Woods, if he decides to peek it, he's got Sharku dead to rights right now.
I think Sharku's watching that window like a hawk.
He is.
Let's find out if Woods steps out and Woods survives.
In the crater.
Let's see.
Crater.
Communication from both teams so important right now.
Sharku
taking his eyes off the prize, maybe at the wrong point.
He's got his gun still aimed at it, so he can quickly flick over if he takes some heat, but he has made it to the building, and now it's a decision.
No, it's the wrong time.
He's going to move in, but Woods missed it. However,
Woods didn't see it.
Yeah, there's no call from him. There's no going for his radio to try to call this out, which means as well we've got Hoochie creeping up on one of the buildings too.
1 minute left on the clock. This is close. All the boss fight players now getting in key positions.
This could change around very quickly. It's looking like it's a beginner's dominated round, but that might not be the case.
Taken down by Smoils. Hooch was ready to take him, but didn't get the line of sight he needed. Scooby taking down Woods though.
At least one trade being found. Dr. Killinger going to be challenged in the second too, but he's able to step outside, goes back in. It won't matter. Sharku finding a quick down against him, and all of a sudden Bossfight have a way to get back into this round, but time is still limited. Yes, Sharku will now be picked off moments later, and it's down to only 1 player still alive here for Bossfight. It's Scooby-Doo having to hold on, and if not, the beginners will claim victory, and it is a tough fight that Scooby-Doo has to go up against here. He'll make a push outside, hasn't even realized though.
He's going to get taken down now by Woods on the flank.
And
he's dead, and it's over. Boss fight, 0, beginners, 8-point streak to take them into the final.
A perfect streak from them, a flawless performance in the semifinal, and with a complete shutout, they will earn their position in the grand finals a little bit later on today with a chance to play for $25,000 in first place up against Globochem.